Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of 30 Coins. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with everything with Manuel. Like, obviously still, in the pit, or that hole that he's in. But what was interesting is, I think at a moment where he's just kind of given up, thinking, this is the end, they're going to execute me. There's no getting around this. Lo and behold, who comes to him? Gikamo, which I think is interesting because it's is that because Gikamo being I'm the one that brought the coin to you, that basically he's I don't hold any resentment towards you, that basically, because obviously for Manuel, he, blames himself because it's because of me, I couldn't save you, because it's you denied the coin, because Manuel kind of denied all that was kind of happening around him around that time. It's but, it's almost like Gikamo was almost saying I had to play my part. I was supposed to be in a position where the coin would find its way to you, and try to basically bring up his spirits by being hey, you'll find a way out of it. You just have to have faith. And it's how am I supposed to have faith? And Gikamo was you literally were praying just yesterday. All you need to do is basically believe in kind of having faith. And it will all kind of work out. And he showed his hands, and there were these marks on his hands, and blood was pouring out. I was oh, is that supposed to be symbolic of the nails going through Jesus's hands? That's what I thought at first. But then Manuel gets pulled out, and him and the other two are about to be taken away to get executed. They're on the drive, but then Ahmed ended up saving them because he's yeah, I believe in our cause, but obviously for him it's the others around him, he realizes obviously he doesn't believe as the way they do, because I believe in our cause, but to go to such extreme measures isn't him. Everyone else around him, he kind of recognizes them kind of going off the deep end, so he's getting them out of there. And they're driving away in the car. I was oh God, especially when they were running to the car, I had the feeling, I was Manuel's going to make it, the other two are going to get shot, but they didn't. I was oh great, oh, they're not dead. And then the car's locked. I was shit. The moment they are actually able to get in the car, I'm oh, the dude's running up with the gun. Luckily Ahmed was hey, they can leave. Home dude ends up shooting Ahmed. You're oh man, he went through the trouble of saving you, because even before they were taken away, Manuel was telling them to kind of not lose hope, to have faith, and he was, praying, and it did kind of work out. Sadly, the guy was still coming after them. The car crashed, but everyone managed to survive. The lady ended up getting away, but the dude, was his name Sven, ended up getting shot in the leg. And as the guy's attacking Manuel, Manuel grabs onto the blade with his hands, breaks off and stabs the dude. But then he looks at his hands and he sees the mark before, so it's that was a vision of what's to come. But am I still wondering, is that supposed to almost still be a representation of the marks on Jesus' hands from the spike? I assume, but it's still the fact is that Gikamo showed up and he was yeah, he had those same marks. It was foreshadowing what was going to happen. So luckily Manuel was able to get Sven out, because he didn't die. Luckily, it was just a leg wound, but they were able to get away. So, once again, we don't know what happened to that lady. Luckily, maybe they just ended up going their separate ways, because later on when we see them, it's just Manuel and Sven. So, but going back to town, obviously we get introduced to the new father, the new priest, Angel. Obviously, the irony behind the name. But even then, I was thinking about it. It's well, it's not even irony, because, well, what was Lucifer before being the devil? He was an angel. Still is an angel. Because I'm always curious about, he's no longer an angel because he fell. So, falling, obviously he's now just the devil. But it's I think, yeah, people always refer to him as he was an angel. So, the moment he fell and became the devil, he's no longer an angel. It was just something part of me. Because I was wondering, I guess it depends on, what story you pull from. Because it's you will always be an angel to a certain extent. Whether it's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, him technically being an angel. Same thing in the TV show Lucifer. Regardless, tangents and all that. But, him, getting close to Merche, which turns out I didn't realize that was a nickname. I thought that was actually, I didn't realize that was short for Mercedes. I didn't know that. That was interesting. I'd never, maybe in the credits they say that, and I just never called that before. Her full name is Mercedes. I was oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was a nickname. I thought that was just her name. But the priest actually taking such an interest in her and everything, and I was okay. They've been building up to this whole moment for a while, and so obviously Merche and Paco are going through what they're going through. Paco's more so worried about everything that's going on right now. He's more so worried about Elena because he hasn't been able to get in contact with her, especially after everything went down in Paris. He just wants to check up on her like nothing else really matters right now because he's kind of going stir crazy, not knowing she's okay because he cares about her. Which obviously I know that plays and that's going to run deeper, obviously affecting his marriage and everything. To the point, like, during kind of, like, the separation proceedings, Baco was like, yeah, you take everything. And she's like, what? He's like, yeah, like, you put in all the work. She's like, yeah, but it was our, he's like, no, it was your idea. So you basically, and for her, she's like, no, we should have 50-50. He's like, no, just take it all. Because for her, she's like, yeah, we might be splitting up, but she's hopeful that maybe during these proceedings, that maybe, like, they can still stay in touch and maybe they can repair the relationship. But in her eyes, it's like, Paco's like, no, take it all. She's like, do you want to have nothing to do with me? Is that what it is? But for him, it's like, I'm so flipped upside down. I'm mad about everything, including myself, And especially Merche, like, she ended up cutting her hair because she was trying to look more. Maybe I'm reading too much in it. I'm wondering, like, because I was wondering, is she trying to look a little more like Elena? Because, like, Elena's hair is about that same length, I think. Maybe I'm thinking about it too much. Because, like, I think it's just, like, she just wanted to kind of, like, oh, new me. I'm going to be there for you. Like, I'm listening. Because she ends up talking to Angel about it later on. Like, I didn't, I was so focused on the business, I wasn't focusing on what he wanted. She's like, everything was to my benefit, and obviously she wants to repair the relationship. And Angel being the little devil on her shoulder, pretending to be an angel on her shoulder, like the layers upon layers of just like, not necessarily the irony, but the, I guess, oxymoronish elements to that. But him trying to be like, oh, Paco, and he brings up Elena, and she's like, what? I never told. How do you know her name? It's like, you told me. And it's like, he's feeding on her like jealousy and her anger that she's kind of like, okay, and just kind of accepts. It's like, yeah, I must have told you, because like I said, they've been setting that up for a while. It's been a long con, or not really a long con, but a long chess move of getting her in a position where it's like, the moment that he's setting this up by being like, you need to confront Elena, like, take all your anger out on her, like, you confront her about everything, and it's like, if she's a good person, she'll move out of the way, but then, Mercedes is like, she's not a good person, and you're like, okay, so I was like, in the end, this is going to be how they get. Because I guess any other means of going after Elena, like, maybe, like, there's some ritualistic element to this where, like, they can't directly interfere. Like, maybe it's that situation. Well, I think the coin maybe, well, no, because it doesn't have to be given over willingly, but I guess it's like, the whole coins are about betrayal, so maybe, like, when acts of ultimate betrayal are performed around them, especially considering this being the final coin, maybe that supercharges it. Maybe it's like, with this last coin and an act of betrayal, a massive act of betrayal being behind it, then maybe it supercharges everything, and that's like a key condition to like unlock the full capabilities of the 30 coins. Because it doesn't seem like they necessarily had to go through an act of betrayal every time. I guess there is, considering like all the killing that had to be involved, so I guess that act, but it's like, maybe the final act with the final coin has to be that. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but like him setting that all up, even giving her the card, being like, oh yeah, sneak it, it's an Apoco check, and you're like, okay, what's that about? And you can tell by the look on her face, like, it's like, she went from just being kind of sad and brokenhearted to almost like being determined and having a mission, and you're like, this isn't good. What was also interesting too is like, when we saw him take off his shirt, like, he has all those like symbols on him, and part of me was like, do you think, I was about to say, like, I was wondering, like, could they potentially be like symbols that keep the vessel from falling apart, like maybe being inside a human body for so long takes its toll. But even there's like that black goo that was like, what is that? Because he's even eating it at one point in time, and it's like, and obviously the role it plays where he's like literally spreading it across town, and it's like, oh, it's for killing rats. It's like, no, it's for making sure they don't escape. And that's what I'm conflicted about the Antonio thing, because at some points it seems like he's against them, but other times it seems like he's for them. Because I guess it's like, yeah, he's crazy, so like he's spouting out everything that's going down, but I guess it's because he's able to say and do all that because he knows no one's really going to listen to him. So it's like, hey, it's like, because even later on he's like, oh, Angel, he's the devil, you guys don't even realize it, but they're like, okay, Antonio, oh, that's crazy, Antonio. Like, that's when I'm like, what? I guess it's because like they don't care either, because it's like, let him spout about literally telling and explaining everything to everyone and it being truthful, but everyone thinks he's crazy, so they're not going to listen, so why do we care? Like, It's like, oh, I guess it just feeds the narrative they're trying to create anyway. But I'm like, I just don't get that, because that's what it's like, because it seemed like he was keeping an eye on Angel, but I guess maybe he wasn't 100% sure. He knew about the new priest, but I guess he wasn't 100% sure what Angel was up to. I guess the voices might have stopped, so they never really told him like what was up, or maybe it's just like keep an eye on Angel, and then maybe we didn't see it in the episode, but maybe they were like help him out, because Antonio like willingly helps him out. That's why I was like, he's blasting, like, oh yeah, he's having me spread this stuff to trap us in town. It's like, you helped him. What do you? Maybe there's a little bit of a dissociative element to like Antonio. I don't know. When you have like voices in your head whispering shit, and you're just not just like, they're not like, oh, these are fake voices. These are real voices of people using powers to, so who knows? So there's an element of that. Paco is trying to gather everyone up because Angel and the old lady, he had given her something, and she starts spreading it in like the sewer drains, and then all of a sudden smoke starts popping up over town. It's like, okay, what the hell is this all about? And a little girl is bouncing her ball, and it like bounces off the wall. So it's like, oh yeah, there's an invisible force field trapping everyone in town, but no one knows what's up. Paco ends up, like the moment he puts the jacket on, he gets thrown against. I was like, oh, I thought they were going to start like, kind of almost like a voodoo thing of like kind of like tossing him around, but they only just did that, and then later on it just seemed like they made him sick. But he was trying to explain to everyone, he's like, I'm gonna confront everyone and tell them what's what, especially because like Laguna got arrested, or at least kind of arrested, yes, but kind of knocked out of commission for a while, because the investigators are like, okay, we found out that you quickly buried some bones that were found, and he's trying to be like, no, that's something else. It might be from like the Civil War and stuff like that. It's like, nah, these bones look too fresh for it to be from the Civil War. He's like, oh, what are you, criminologist or criminologist? And she's like, yes, I am one. And he's looking like shit. So it's fascinating, and they end up looking into it, and it's like, these bones are within the past 2 to 4 years. This is a shotgun challenge. It's like, why are you covering it up? He's like, all right, you want to know the truth? He doesn't go into the specifics, but he does reference the whole Mario thing, because he's like, this man was killed by 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden, somehow a couple of days ago, he magically is walking in, and I watched that man jump off the damn bridge. So he's like, I can't explain what's going down here, and if I could, like, that's why I didn't really want to go into be in a position of explaining what's what, because I'm going to sound damn crazy, because I can't explain it. This town is cursed, and it's like, yeah, to the point that he's like, yeah, I'm not going to see my wife, just tell her to go to her sister's house, I'll meet up with her after a while. And it's like, well, if that's what you want, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. So all this is going down, so there's already that set in motion. Paco's trying to explain, well, yeah, there's some witchcraft shit going on. Like, everything that's happened, everything from the beginning, the disappearance, this and that. It's like, these are Manuel's enemies. He wasn't necessarily responsible, but we're being punished for him having these enemies. It's like, well, he's not here anymore. It's like, well, yeah, but like, we're still kind of cursed. And saying that this is all witchcraft, because obviously it's like everyone recognizes like what's going on isn't normal, and they're like, yeah, we've been knew that, you're just figuring out. He's like, no, I've known for a while, but I've been trying to protect you guys from the truth of what's going on. And so what's also interesting too is that because of the setup, you can come in, but you can't go out. What's also interesting, like, I'm not the biggest Dark Souls fan. Like, I played a little bit of the first game, but obviously even I recognize, like, oh, like the fog door. It's like, if you never played Dark Souls, that's how, I think it applies in all of them. I think it's in Demon Souls as well. Bloodborne, I think, as well. The whole element of, like, there's a fog door, that's a sign that there's a boss on the other side. They're basically boss doors. So it kind of reminded me of that, like, with just how foggy it was, and just how it stops, how because of the barrier, it's not seeping through, so it kind of piles up against the wall like that. So it's interesting. But like I said, once you go in, there's no coming out. And it's actually, interestingly enough, it kind of reminds me of The Mist. I was almost halfway expecting there to be monsters popping out of it, but it's like, nope. I guess maybe it's just I guess it's specifically for the sake of disorientating people, because it's like, hey, you're in the town, like the entire town is fogged up, you can't see what's in front of you. I guess it's supposed to agitate and aggravate your fear and your confusion, and you're going to be like mice trapped inside of a maze. I guess it's kind of like it seems like the literal metaphor they're going for when Angel refers to them as mice. So that's what I thought was interesting. Like, I mean, doesn't mean maybe later on there won't be monsters that end up coming out of it, but it seems like it serves that purpose. Because at first I was like, is it going to poison them, or like what? It doesn't seem like it. It's just to disorientate them and confuse them, because it's like, where are we? How do we get out? Like, it seems like that's as far as it goes, at least for now. Like I said, maybe later on that's going to modify into something else. But yeah, Paco was trying to tell the truth, but then he gets affected more and more, and Angel's like, oh yeah, this is, all this stuff happening, it's just natural stuff, it's no big deal. Paco's not doing well, so he's a little crazy right now, and Mercedes is kind of like, oh, what's going on? She's kind of concerned. But I guess, because I was wondering, I was like, are you not putting two together? You put that card in his pocket, and now he's sick, but then later on, she's taking care of him. He's like, I'm so sorry for everything. And she's like, it's okay. I'm going to get the doctor. In the moment she leaves the room, she smiled, because her desires are so warped of like, I want him. I'm going to keep what's mine. Elena's not going to take him from me. This is mine. He needs me. He wants me. Like, her jealousy and her distorted, like, her desires, very distorted desires being kind of in the top of my mind right now, just because, like I said, I most recently played Persona 5 Royal, so that's kind of in the top of my mind. So it is an example of her having her distorted desires come in full swing like this. So there's that. There's also like the pig heads being put on the doors that they caught the old lady doing, and I was like, I guess this is all part of some ritual. She ended up killing that guy at the place where all the pigs were being slaughtered. Poor bastard. And I was like, what is she up to? What is she doing? And I guess it's all part of, I guess like it's all, these are steps. Everything I feel like went down in this episode, especially in that town, have all been steps for, preparation for this ritual. Like, getting all 30 coins is just the beginning. I think everything else was a necessary step in completing said ritual in the town, because I think they even referred to it as like a ritual. So what I also thought was kind of interesting is Elena coming back in town. I figured she'd be able to cross, just because I was like, oh yeah, maybe the coin gives her access, but it's like, once again, it's like, right, Paco went through, but I was like, yeah, because that was like after the barrier had already been put up, and then later on, Manuel shows up and he goes through the barrier like there's no issue. Like I said, it's meant to invite people in, but no one can get out. It's kind of the whole, point of it all. So it's really fascinating. Then there was a situation where everyone was panicked. They're at the church being like, what the hell is going on? People find pig heads on their doors, like, yeah, there's something up. They go to the top of the church and they recognize, like, wait, the entire town is covered in it, but it's not outside of the town, so it's allocated just to them. And obviously everyone's worried and panicked. And Mercedes was kind of like, what's going on? And, Angel's like, oh yeah, like something's about to come, and like, you're going to be there. I think he had told her earlier, like, you're going to play an important role in all of this. It might have been in that particular scene, but it's like, basically, a crawl out the window. It's like, she's like, what about everyone else? Like, some people may survive, others won't. But, and then he kind of leaves. He's like, don't worry. And then proceeds to lock everybody in, and you're like, oh shit. They're banging on her door trying to get out. Mercedes ends up getting out. Lo and behold, she ends up going, like, getting turned around, and lo and behold, where did she go? Oh, where Paco is, exactly sometime after Elena got led there by the old woman. And it's like, oh, like, every man between your legs end up dying. Like, oh, you better be careful that you end up alone. The moment she sent Elena up there to Paco, I was like, oh, we're setting this off. And then the moment Mercedes started going through the door, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely the pathway to Paco. And then she finds Paco and Elena goes, she's like, what's happening? What did you do to him? And then immediately goes into attack mode, starts fucking Elena up, even like kicking her in the face. Luckily, Paco ended up rolling off the bed and the card fell out, so they're not controlling him anymore. But hits, slaps, and just like rolling down the damn stairs. And she was like bashing Elena's head. I was almost scared, because I was like, oh, it looks like you're banging her head against the damn cement like stairs. I was like, oh, this is bad. Luckily, Paco was able to kind of break it up. But not before Mercedes ends up pulling a coin off of her, and it's like, hey, come with me, we can go back home. But it's like, Paco's like, okay, we can go back home. Now give me the coin. And she's like, why? Because that's not yours. But she won't listen, so it's just kind of like, well, it's kind of like, because that desire of like, okay, but now it's like, why do you keep protecting her? It's like, you're no longer mine, you're hers. Well, forget you, I don't need you anymore. So she's kind of lost herself to all this, and she brings the coin to Angel. Obviously, he had also previously set the church on fire. My thought was immediately like, I was about to say, do I want to spoil this show or not? There's a show where basically the final episode of a season ends with basically every member of a particular town dying except for like the main characters. It's, as long as I don't specify what show I'm referencing. But I almost thought we were in that situation. I was like, are we about to insert TV show this because their first season literally ended with killing everyone in town in one swift moment, and I was like, literally everyone, like 99% of the town is there. The only people that aren't is Laguna, who tried to escape and ended up crashing into the invisible wall, which the two investigators are like, holy shit, like what? The other tried to shoot their way out, the bullet bounced out, so it's like, wait, because at first it's like they were slowly coming to like, hey, maybe this ain't BS. Maybe there's something more to this. Like everything that's going on, like what Paco's saying is confirming what Antonio was saying. And it's like, really? It's like, there's some crazy shit going down. So now they're believers in this too. Sadly got roped into all of this, coming to investigate everything. But who knows? Maybe that's how this was meant to be. But luckily, they made it to the door, and I was like, are you going to bust them out? But no, luckily, everyone in town, like who was ever in the church, busted free. I was like, oh, good. So you guys aren't burning to death. Luckily for you. I was like, wow, I was expecting everyone to die. But what I thought was interesting, though, is like I said, the moment Elena walked in, everyone could feel. I wonder, was it her? It seems like it's not necessarily just the coin. Maybe it's a combination of Elena and the coin, because I guess they've got a sense of her. But the moment that happened, it was like, oh, Fabio reacted, the old lady reacted, and Angel reacted. But we only saw Angel's reaction the moment Manuel entered. He was like, too bad, too late for you to interfere. And then we had that moment at the end where we had Manuel going in, getting strapped up, locked and loaded, ready for battle, so that's definitely going to be interesting. And obviously everyone in town trying to get out, but obviously every pathway out of the town is blocked, so they're all trapped there, and it's like, okay, so where all this is going, I really don't know how the next episode is going to play out. It is the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see where this all goes, because it's so interesting because even if they deal with the current circumstances, it still leaves the Canaanites, Fabio and them all having 29 of the coins, and Angel has the 30th one. Maybe they don't even need to be in that same area as long as he has it, and maybe like the ritual he's about to perform connects all the power. Now that all 30 are in our possession, maybe it's like, because they're able to use magic, so I guess they could just psychically link themselves and then all present their coins at once, so it's like they're all in the same place. But like I said, I'm expecting some monsters to come out of the fog, the smoke, but maybe that's not the case. But it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, especially because, I thought everyone was going to die this episode. Who's to say everyone doesn't end up dying? Well, most everyone doesn't end up dying next. Because that's what I'm like. You can definitely see where could definitely go into a second season, but it's just like where this story will necessarily end off. Because, the show is called 30 Coins, so this is always going to be a constant battle. So it's like, is it going to be about protecting this final coin while they have the rest? And is it going to be about taking them down? Because it's not like you even have the church's support, because Fabio's like right there to the Pope and is, kind of whispering in his ear and kind of keeping anyone from getting too close. So it's not like you can get his help to kind of break apart all that's going down. So it's kind of like a one-man war at this time, considering Manuel the only allies he has is Elena and Paco, who know generally what's going on. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all ultimately plays out. It might be a situation where it's pure speculation at this point, but I'm wondering, is it going to be a bit of an anthology in the sense that the only character you will follow the entire show will be Manuel? Maybe he goes from town to town. Every season it's him in a new town, maybe. So maybe he ends up leaving this town behind, and if he leaves, and with the coin, everything else ends there. Or maybe, I don't know, there's so many, or maybe it's all going to stay in this town. Like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see how everything plays out in the season finale. I'm very excited to see what happens. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.